You're tuned in to Getting to the Root of It, focusing on healing and letting go of the wounds of addiction and other unresolved traumas of the past. Your breakthrough begins with you. Are you ready to change your life? Stay tuned as your host, expert therapist, personal development coach, and spiritual cheerleader, Natashah Khan, inspires you to live the life you were destined to live.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Getting to the Root of It. This is your host, Natashah Khan, and I am so happy that you guys are joining me and tuning in this morning or today or this afternoon, wherever you may be. Today, I have a wonderful guest joining us today. Her name is Michelle Heintz, and she is the mother of an addict. She has had quite a journey in raising a son who once upon a time, she was not aware that he was struggling with the illness of addiction. So I've asked her to join us today because I know many of my listeners either struggle with addiction, are in recovery from addiction, or they have a family member that struggles in or in recovery from addiction issues. Everyone knows that this platform of Getting to the Root of It, we've talked so much about substance abuse, mental health issues, and the comorbidity behind addiction. So I felt it very appropriate today to have my special guest on, Michelle, so that she can share a little bit of her journey and her experience through just dealing with what comes with having a loved one that's struggling with the disease of addiction, and how did she manage and how did she cope through it. There's going to be so much good information and helpful tips and tools along the way in this conversation, guys. So please make sure that you stay tuned in. You may even want to take some notes. All right, so let's get to it. Miss Michelle, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Natasha, for having me on here. I'm excited about sharing my journey and what I've been through. And hopefully I can give some hope to some other parents that have struggled as well and still struggling.
That's a great word, hope. Do you to hear you say you want to give hope to another family, was there ever a point in time in your journey that you didn't have hope?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can probably say the past 8 to 9 years, I've been hopeless. Yeah.
How long would you say that you've sort of regained that sense of hope?
How long has it been? Probably, it's probably been a good year, about a good year. Since I started really focusing on, once I became aware that I'm just as much involved in this as our addict, our loved one, then I started doing the work on me. And when I started doing the work on me, things started changing. I started changing.
Well, that's one of the main reasons why I've had you on this show. So for those that are tuning in today, I want to ensure that you guys are listening to this really carefully. So Michelle has a loved one that has struggled with addiction on and off for many, many years. She has experienced hopelessness for about 8 years, potentially more, give or take. But she only found hope, and we're going to talk a little bit more about freedom and joy in a little bit, that she's only experienced in the last year. And what I'm hearing her say is that she gained that hope through working on herself. So we're going to get Michelle to tell us a little bit of the story of where she started with all of this and how she came to be in this place where she recognized that she needed to work on herself. Because the reason why I would love for you to do that, Michelle, is that oftentimes in our society, and unfortunately the stigma that is around addiction, when we learn that someone we love is struggling with the illness, it is emphasized that it's just their problem and their problem alone, right? So for you to say that I realized in the last year that I had things that I needed to work on, it's sort of, opposite of what society believes to be true. Like, why would you need to work on anything if your loved one is the one struggling with this illness? So I just wanted to point that out there to the world that, addiction is a family disease, right? There's biological, psychological, environmental, social factors that play a part in how this illness progresses over our lifetime. So without further ado, Michelle, would you take some time and just kind of share with our audience when and where this journey began?
It was probably 2012, I think. Tyler was in his in between his junior and senior year in high school, and I was laying in bed one day and I felt this nudge on the side of my bed, and he said, "Mom, I think I'm going through withdrawals." What? What are you talking about? So, I'm not having any idea what in the world. I get up and we go, and I'm in there. He's just telling me, "Well, I've been taking Roxy's." What is that? Well, it's an opiate. So of course I start Googling, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go to Rainbow Blossom. I'm going to get all of these things that we're going to do a detox. We can do this. I can do this. Go and we purchase all this stuff. It's about $100 worth of holistic medication that I'm going to cure my son, and we're going to get through this. No, he lasted for about 10 hours and was gone. And each time this happened several times. He ended up going to a rehab and was there for 30 days. I think we as parents seem to think that, well, I know I definitely did. In the beginning, I thought that a rehab was going to solve everything. He goes into the rehab. That's great. He gets home and everything's going to be hunky-dory and fine. But that is not, in fact, at all how it is. We learned that after probably about the 10th to 12th rehab, that's not how it is. It was a struggle, and it was a struggle. Whew. It's not something that's easy to go through. And like you said, I did absolutely think that it was him. Why in the world can you not get it together? Why is this so hard for you? And until we started doing meetings with him, going to meetings, I wanted to know more about it, AA, Nar-Anon, and codependent meetings. I started doing those on my own. And just gradually, it just kept getting, the disease kept progressing. And there were periods where there was probably a 3-year span where he was living jail, because we didn't, mind you, when Tyler was locked up, I can tell you, this was one of the very hardest things that we did, and this was very heartbreaking. He had once taken some power tools out of our garage, and Terry was really reluctant in us doing anything about it. And I said, I feel like we need to press charges against him. Now, as a parent, that's very hard to do that. We put our son in the system. He has misdemeanor charges of theft because his parents pressed charges against him. Because of my thought process. How old was he at that time? 18, almost 19.
How did it feel for you as a parent? What went through? Can you share with us, if you can recall, some of the thoughts and or feelings of, this is my child, this is my baby, right?
Yeah. Why is he? What is going on here? As a parent, I think we like to think that we're in control of everything and we can control the process. And if he goes to jail, he's going to be punished, and he can sit in there and think about what he's done. That's not how it goes. We did the tough love. We did. And tough love works for some and tough love doesn't work for some. We've done all of that. He got out of jail, and I think it was just a couple of days relapsed again. He went to another rehab, and for about 3 years he was jail, rehab, out for a while, rehab. I mean, that was our answer, was to rehab, just to try to get him back to a normal state of mind to be able to get where he needed to be. And little did we know, it had absolutely nothing to do with us. What we were, push, you got to go to rehab, you got to go to rehab. we don't have control over. If they want to go to rehab, they'll go to rehab. They get help when they know when they need help, and they are better at getting the help than we are. I know that now. I thought that I was able to do that and get him the help and heal him. No, God heals. I don't heal. We don't heal.
Let me ask you this. That's a great point. You talked about going to codependency meetings, and some of our listeners out there may or may not be familiar with that terminology. In the earlier years when your son was struggling and, you said, in and out of rehab or going to rehab and thinking it was a solution, did you know that you were codependent? At what point did you find out that you were in a codependent relationship with your son?
When I was trying to work harder on his problems than he was. That's when I knew, okay, Michelle, you're codependent. Something's not. I mean, I was having to communicate with him every day. How are you doing? What's going on? I was trying to fix, manage, and control all of his problems. I was trying to get him better, but I realized that that's not, I can do that for myself, and that's it.
Did you, and I'm trying to go somewhere with this. Did you identify being codependent on your own, or did somebody point out to you and said, hey, Michelle, you're codependent?
I don't know. Somebody pointed out to me. I had no idea.
And so initially when you heard it, were you receptive to hearing that?
No, I'm not sick. I don't have any problems. My son is sick, not me. Yes. Yeah. I was reluctant in hearing that. I had no idea what codependency was or anything. I didn't have a clue. I just thought that I was a good mom and I worked hard, and he was an only child. Tyler had anything. Anything he wanted, the kid had. We weren't struggling. Addiction there's no discrimination. And I learned that. It was humbling. This whole process has been humbling. Yeah, no, I didn't know I was codependent. I do now.
I asked you that question because in the years that I've been doing this, and I would share with a family member or help them identify the fact that they were codependent. Most oftentimes people get very, very offended and they're like, that's not me, right? Until you kind of sort of break down and spell out the behaviors of the fixer, right? The enabler, the rescuer, the problem solver. Like you said, that need to control the situation, because maybe if I control it, maybe if I tell you what to do, when to do, how to do, things will work out the way that it's supposed to, right? So that's one of the reasons why I asked that question, because I think that is very insightful, and it's a pivotal, it needs to be a pivotal moment in our lives when we recognize now, like, okay, so my loved one is addicted to substances, but now I'm codependent with my loved one. So hopefully the awareness of that issue allows us to be able to not just focus on what our loved ones need to work on, but realize now that there's something that we ourselves need to work on, right? So how many years into your loved one's struggle with the illness did you come to realize, like, there's something that I need to work on. There's something going on with me that isn't working and I need to change it. Like, what was the turning point for you with that?
Probably, I would say within the last 3 years, because, Tyler did, and he's doing well today, but Tyler was sober for over 2 years and then relapsed. And that in itself was a big setback for me. And that's when he relapsed again, and relapse is inevitable. I used to think that it was the worst thing ever, but you know what relapse is? It's God telling us there's more for us to learn. I've learned that. When he relapsed, I realized that this time's going to be different. I've got to do some more work on me. I've got to figure out what it is that I can do to get through this, because this roller coaster ride is painful and it hurts. And we generally don't change until we've had enough pain. I think for myself, I had enough pain of dealing with this. So I finally wanted to change and start working on me. And
can you describe for us just so that others can understand and relate? Because I'm sure a lot of people may say, well, that's her story, not mine. Just some of what the thought process, what was that struggle? What type of emotions did you endure over the years in the course of your son being in and out of treatment? And, on, 1 minute he's sober, next minute he's not. Can you describe a little bit of that struggle for you?
Like how I felt ashamed that my son was struggling with this disease. I thought it was my fault, that I had failed as a parent, and that I shouldn't have a child that was going through this. Hopeless, powerless. It's a horrible feeling. It's not something I'd wish on my worst enemy. I always say that. It's devastating to go through this. But I'm grateful. And that's a crazy thing to say. It's like it's a blessing, because if it wasn't for Tyler's addiction, I wouldn't be where I am today. I would not have sought help for myself had this not happened. I wouldn't be humbled and have a different view on people. I have more empathy towards this. I've wanted to learn so much more about it and know that it's not just a disease, it's also a disease of the mind. So, yeah.
So I have a couple questions, because you're dropping a lot of important information. Would you say today, with what you know, that what you were feeling, the powerlessness, the helplessness, the shame and the guilt, do you believe that those feelings that you were experiencing then played a part in driving the unhealthy behaviors of enabling and fixing and problem solving and trying to control everything? Do you think your emotions had a part to do in that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He used to, when he would get out of rehab, and I don't know why it is that, and I do this a lot. I'm like a gift giver. I think that's my love language. I like to buy things and give things. And when Tyler would get out of rehab and he'd be doing so good, what's the first thing we do? We go get a cell phone, or we go get new clothes, or we go get new shoes. He's doing so well. Let's reward him. And guess where those things went? They were a lot of times sold for the next drug. Or in that process, that's whenever I started learning, stop rewarding for doing this. And in that also, I also had to learn not to withhold love, because I got to a point where I would get so angry at him, I would start withholding love from him, because he needs to be punished for this. This is not right. I mean, maybe if I just stop giving, and if I just stop being lovable to him and just tough love this and withhold love, maybe he'll change. Maybe he'll see. That has nothing to do with this. Nothing at all. And it's a hard lesson to learn going through it. Going through it and going through it and going through it. You finally, it's just, you deal with enough pain to where you are pulling out and you want something different.
Do you remember the day or the defining moment or the month of when you said, something's got to give and I need to do something differently, versus, like you're saying, versus constantly looking at him and what he needs to do and what he needs to change and when is he going to do it, and just exhausting yourself that way? Do you remember the day or time when it became clear to you, like, okay, something's got to change and it's got to start with me?
Last September, whenever he went into the Robert Alexander Center, which is an amazing facility, probably one of the best rehabs that Tyler's ever been into. the facility and the people there genuinely care about him. And with that, and with hearing him, talking with him, I knew that I had to change as a family. And then when he was when he was released, he did really well. Went to a sober living facility, and then he had relapsed again. At that point, I did meetings. I was doing the family support through RAC and met you. And at that point, you had mentioned something on one of our group meetings, and you had said, I can help. I think it was, I had said something. You said, I can help. I reached out to you. And from then on that's been it. I mean, I'm a totally different person from that day on. From January, he was living rehab to car, detox to car, detox to car. When he needed a shower or needed something to eat, he would go into detox. And when he got out of detox, he called and said, Mom, I'm out of detox. I need to go to the doctor. And I said, Tyler, you need to find some sober buddies to help you get where you need to be. And that was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I cried. I called you. Natashah, did I make the right choice? Am I doing this right? But from that point on, I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Something's got to change. Because if there's no change, there's no change. Something has to change with this. And
so there is a moment where, so first of all, what you just shared, that's your way of saying no to him, right? Which is, I have another episode where I talk about boundaries and the importance of setting those healthy boundaries. So I love when you said, I told him he needed to find some sober buddies to help him. That's your nonverbal way of saying, no, I can't help you, right? And although that it was emotionally hard for you, you had to stick to your no. And I think that's super important for a lot of our families that are tuning in, because I think that's a lot of times why we find ourselves being manipulated or giving in to our own boundaries that we set, because we say no and someone is not happy with our no. And as a result, we sort of take that no back, right? And what many families need to understand is that when we say no, no is a complete sentence. When I say no, no means no, right? I mean, of course, you can explain to someone why you're saying no, but at the end of the day, once it's out there, we need to be able to commit to it. So I still want to go back just a little bit, again, that moment for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was a moment where he did come out of detox this last time, and there was an issue with the car.
It didn't have any gas in it.
So can you tell us a little bit about that phone call and then what happened from there?
Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break.
Hi, my name is Natashah Khan. I am a personal development coach. I am a published author, motivational speaker, and I'm here with an opportunity for you today. Do you ever sometimes feel sort of stuck, not really sure where you're heading in life, or looking back on your life and thinking, I didn't quite always accomplish the things that I wanted? Do you struggle with fear and or anxiety, or you worry all the time? Or maybe you find yourself constantly giving to everyone else, but never really taking time to give to yourself. Or maybe you identify as a codependent and you realize that it's time for you to stop giving so much of yourself to everyone else and to stop and take time to give back to you. Well, you've come to the right place. On Monday evenings from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I host a group that is a private group, so it's invitation only, to members who come together to begin to support each other, lift each other up, inspire each other, and learn the tools necessary on how to find their freedom, how to empower their voices, speak their truth, and discover their authentic selves. So if this sounds like something that you are interested in, you are welcome to reach out to me via email at empoweredvoices45@gmail.com. Again, that is empoweredvoices45@gmail.com. If you are looking to change your life, you are looking to transform and live the life that you've been destined to live, please don't hesitate to reach out today. So I still want to go back just a little bit. Again, that moment for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was a moment where he did come out of detox this last time, and there was an issue with the car.
It didn't have any gas in it.
So can you tell us a little bit about that phone call and then what happened from there?
Well, previously he had went into a detox, and we had taken some gas over for him so that he could go to the doctor after he got out of detox, because as a parent, you will do anything that you can to keep your child sober, keep them going on the right path. Because ultimately that's what we want, is our kids to get through this. And there was no gas in his car the last time. And he said, "Hey, Mom, I don't have any gas. I need to get to the dock." Well, Mom and Dad didn't rescue him, and his car sat over there and waiting for him to come and get. A lot of times his battery would die too. There were some instances where his battery would die because he would leave it running because he was in it. But we didn't go over. We didn't put any gas in his car. His car sat there, and he went out, and it, wasn't doing anything. He didn't have enough gas to get anywhere. And at that point, I said, "Tyler, you need to communicate with your friends." And mind you, his cell phone wasn't. It was just a Go phone, that he would use, because you get smart to where you're not supplying them or giving them anything that they can turn. I learned not to give him anything that he could turn into dope. Anything. So, and I definitely don't want to contribute to him able to communicate with his dealer to get more dope.
Sure.
So
what made
that was on his.
What made that time different than any other time, Michelle? I mean, you've been dealing with this for so long. You said at least 8 years. So why that day? What was going on with you? What was happening in that period of time in your life that was different this time for you to say no and be able to step back and just let him figure it out for himself? And the reason why I asked that is, you're very capable of saying no, and you had 8 years to do it, and you struggled to. So what was different? What were you doing? What were you learning? What were you hearing? What were you feeling? Like, why was this time particularly different than any other time before?
Because I had done so many meetings, I never missed a Thursday night meeting through Lainey's family support and yours. I had learned from you guys that you have to say no. You got to say no. Keep coming back, keep doing the meetings, and just say no to them. Not really just no, but we have to detach ourselves. So that was my way of detaching. Like you said, I didn't really say no, but I said, I tried to put something positive in there versus just saying no. Contact sober friends. Pain. Got tired of dealing with the pain. And I don't know, that day, I feel like the Holy Spirit was saying, "You got this. You can do this. And let me have control. Give your child to me." That I had always thought I had given Tyler to God. I had not given Tyler to God until this past summer. I gave Tyler away. I gave him back his child. He was never mine to begin with. I gave him back his child. And the moment that I did that, things started falling into place. When I accepted my higher power for myself and for him, work started happening for both of us.
So you surrendered your need to control your son, surrendered your son to God. Okay, first of all, that's powerful. Like, you gave me goosebumps. That is a very powerful statement. And it sounds like it needs to be another show all of its own, because, as a result, oftentimes when we're struggling with addiction, whether it's with ourselves or with our loved ones, or we're weathering any kind of storm, sometimes it's really difficult to consider God, right? Or to seek God, or to recognize that God can help us through these difficult times. Where was your understanding, belief, or relationship with God prior to that moment that you're talking about, that you surrendered your son back to him? Again, my same question as earlier, how is it that that didn't happen sooner? Again, what was different for you to say, I'm going to surrender my son to him now versus not surrendering your son to God before?
Surrendering my own belief that I have control over him. I have no control. God has control. I can't fix, manage, and control him or anyone else. I can only do that for myself. Knowing that, as hard as we had worked as parents to try to get him sober, and we continue to keep failing, surely God can do this. You get to a point, I don't know why you are reluctant giving your child, your only child. You are very reluctant to give that away. I'm not going to get, I'm not giving him to anyone. That's my baby boy. But it happened. And, today I can say I'm very proud of him. He struggles. We all struggle daily, but he's doing well. He's trying to work the program. He's working hard. I'm working hard. And if he doesn't work hard and he relapses, it's okay. I'm going to be okay. And he's going to be okay. And I had someone, go ahead.
I was just going to say, why, Michelle? I cannot imagine right now how many people listening to this is going, she would be okay if he relapsed, right? So why would it be okay for you, Michelle?
Because I know that there's more for us to both learn, not just us, his father and I, and anyone else that has to deal with this or is going through this. There's more for us to learn with it. There's more for him to learn if it happens. It's not the end of the world. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but there are worse things than death. There is. And I was told that by a dear friend of mine, Joni, because I struggled for a long time, and I would meet with her and she would tell me there's worse things than death, Michelle. And I would repeat that over and over and over. Every time he would go through a relapse or every time he would go through something, I would tell myself there's worse things than death. What's worse than death? Him struggling day in and day out. Us struggling day in and day out. I'm not saying that I want my son to die, because I don't want my son to die. I want him to surpass this disease and to be able to become a mentor to other young men and know that this can be done. And he is going to do that. I have no doubt that is going to happen. But just as a peace of mind for other parents to know that there are worse things than than they're not being here, because they're always with us every day. I don't know. I know that sounds crazy, but that's where I'm at.
I actually was going to ask you, Michelle, you say you're okay with your son relapsing. What do you say to those who've lost a child to death, right? Who's lost a loved one to this disease? And I think you just answered that, because I think that is super profound. I think too many of us in this world are fearful of death. But until you understand what the active addict is going through in their daily struggle, when they are struggling with this disease mentally, emotionally, spiritually, some of that stuff is indescribable. Some of that stuff is just how they even survive and overcome. I do believe it's a miracle of God. It's a work of a power greater than ourselves that truly, truly, truly restores us to sanity. Right. So I've never heard that phrase before, but I love it. And I do agree with that. I support that there are much greater things than death, because at least at death, I'm at rest. With death, I'm at peace. When I'm still alive and I am in active addiction and I am out there, not just using the substances, but the mental turmoil, the emotional turmoil, some people can't even just handle one emotion. Let's just say it's guilt, right? People that are in active addiction are dealing with all emotions, right? And different levels and intensities of emotion that they carry within them on a daily basis. So you had ended up answering my question before I even asked my question. So I appreciate that. So let's, before we wrap this up today, can you take us back to sharing with those that are listening today that despite the struggle, despite what is going on with your son, good, bad, or indifferent, despite the fact that you've come to this realization that you're not the one to help him, that there's a power greater than you that can help your son. And it sounds like you're truly stepping back and, as I like to say, staying in your hula hoop, right? And letting God do what God is called to do. What are you doing in the interim? Because if you're so used to helping and enabling and rescuing and problem solving, now that you're allowing God to do what God is called to do in your son's life, and you're standing in your hula hoop, what are you doing with your time? What are you doing for you? What has the journey been like for you now, let's say the last 6 months or a year?
Learning about myself and my own belief systems was huge for me, and why I feel and do the things that I do for myself. Journaling, when I have a feeling of I'm feeling some kind of way, I'm journaling about my feelings. I attend no less than 3 meetings a week. I have to have that. We expect our loved ones, our addicts that we love and want to do so well, to do that as well. We are no different than them. In order for us to keep a sane mind and to be able to help them and help ourselves, we need to do that for ourselves. So I do meetings, I'm journaling, I'm praying. I meet with you. I mean, that's something else too. 6 months, every week for 6 months, we met. I am going to have to tell you, Natashah, you are my saving grace. You have helped me tremendously. If there are mothers and fathers alike out there that needs that extra boost, Natashah, you are amazing. And I do hope that you can work through others. God has worked through you. He's worked through me. And with that, we are teaching. Hopefully we'll be able to help lots of other parents out there that are struggling with this. And our kids.
Well, I don't think I've ever cried on my show before, and I'm going to try not to cry today. I really, really appreciate you saying that. I have to remind you as well that in the last 6 months that you've worked with me, you've come with an open mind and a willing heart to do something different. Not ever really knowing what that different is, but it's that, and it's the same thing for your loved ones, right? When they're called to recover and they're called to go to a meeting or whatever it is, we always ask for them to have a mustard seed of willingness to do something different. And I can honestly say, in working with you in the last 6 months, you have definitely demonstrated that. You didn't know what you were up against. You don't know what kind of work we were going to be doing. You just knew that you wanted different. You knew that you didn't want to keep feeling the way that you were feeling. You didn't want to continue to live in fear that your son was going to die. You didn't want to continue to have the guilt that it is your fault, that's why your son is sick and he's not getting better, right? So your mustard seed of willingness to do something different is what has allowed this amazing transformation in just 6 months, right? So just like the program of AA or NA, if we stick to it, if we're committed for 6 months, you had your meetings 3 days a week, you had your individual sessions and working with me one-on-one as your coach weekly. You learn to not make decisions alone. You learn to seek people that were also in your sober network, and also seek out everything that you're doing as a parent, everything that you're doing as a loved one is the same thing that is recommended for your loved ones when they're in treatment. So I hope that our audience and those tuning in today, the families that are impacted by addiction, understand that even though your loved one may be struggling with substances, that they oftentimes for you they're your substance, right? They're who you are hyper focused on, if your day is focused on them and how you can help them or make them feel better, or believe that if they're better, you're going to be better, and when they're good, you're going to be good, those are surely the signs of an unhealthy and codependent relationship, right? So I ask you guys to, to take note that addiction doesn't just plague the one person in the family. Addiction isn't just about drugs and alcohol. People can be addicted to nicotine. People can be addicted to work. People can be addicted to making money. Some are addicted with the need to control people, places, and things, and wanting to tell people how to live their lives, yet they struggle to practice it and or demonstrate it in their own. So, Michelle, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and just having the courage and sharing your experience and your strength with your loved one, and just being able to offer that hope to so many other people that oftentimes you and I both know, being in the moment when your loved one is struggling and you know that they're high and they're using and they're on the verge of death, and sometimes they don't want to go to treatment. We both can relate to what that feels like. Any words of wisdom that you would want to share, any message, anything you want the families out there that are listening, that when they're in that place of feeling stuck and they're in that place of feeling powerless and there's nothing more that they can do to help their loved ones, what can you offer them today, Michelle?
Reach out for help. Don't think that you're able to do it on your own, because you're not. Love them where they're at. They're struggling just like we struggle with dealing with their addiction. They're struggling with their addiction. Love them where they are. Do meetings constantly, reach out. That's the one thing that I used to always get so frustrated at him was, reach out to your sponsor. Why is it before you relapse? Why don't you reach out to your sponsor? Why don't you reach out to people? Michelle, whenever you're having a bad day, how come you're not reaching out to people? It's the same thing for me too. We always want everybody else to do what we would do, but yet we're not doing it ourselves. When we start doing the work, things start happening. And that's what's happened for us. We start doing the work and things start happening, and big things are going to happen, guys. Watch, big things are going to happen. Just saying.
Just hearing, first of all, just hearing you make that statement is so big for you, because knowing where you were 6 months, knowing where you were a year ago, to know how much you struggled and stayed in the struggle for 8 years. And in a matter of 6 months, your life has just truly transformed. Your mindset is different. Your perspective is different. You're learning to not allow yourself to be chained to all of those unwanted emotions of guilt and shame and powerlessness and helplessness. You speak of God, and for our listeners out there, I always say to you guys, we're not asking you, this is not about religion. It's about spirituality. It's about us understanding that we are not the end all be all, right? Now, if you seek church, and if you seek the Bible, or if you seek the Torah, or you seek the Quran, whatever you seek that is, and that works for you, that's great. But there's also a population of individuals out there in the world that do not seek religion. And I want to encourage you to understand that it's not about the religion. It's about, what do you understand about life outside of yourself, right? There is an energy, there is a source, there is something that's greater than us. Because I know from my own personal experiences, when I thought that the world started with me and ended with me, when you talk about asking for help, I wasn't going to ask anybody for help. Why would I ask anybody for help when I can do it? I can answer that question. I can solve that problem. It was all about me, right? I was on an island of one. And then there came a point in time where the universe showed up in a way that I just, like you said, I couldn't do anything more. I was emotionally, mentally, physically exhausted. And the way that you surrendered your son, I surrendered to just the universe. And I'm like, okay, if there is a God out there, and if you truly exist, show me what you want me to do, because I'm done. And I do believe that it's in those moments of what people may see as a weakness, but it's in those moments where we are our most vulnerable, is where we find our strength. It's where we get the power to be able to say, okay, I surrender my need to control. I'm willing to try anything. I'm willing to do whatever you suggest. I'm willing to do whatever you're recommending. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe for
Mm-hmm.
those who don't have a relationship with a higher power, don't understand the concept of a higher power, be willing to listen to the professionals, be willing to listen to the interventionist. Robert Alexander Center is an amazing treatment center that I've grown to know the staff there and love anyone there. Michelle has had her loved one go through their program and has nothing but wonderful things to say about the program. Listen to the guys in the admissions department, listen to the guys that are on the ground, that are sitting in your living room and trying to convince you that your loved one needs to get that help. Stop fighting it, stop questioning it, stop thinking that you can do it on your own, right? There's a team of professionals out there that can help get your loved ones on the path. And we need you as family members to help them to get on that path and also stay on that path. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't thank you enough, Michelle. Is there, before we close it out today and say goodbye to our listeners, anything else that you maybe want to share that you didn't get a chance to earlier on?
You were talking about the program, the program there. It doesn't just stop after the recovery, just after the 30-day recovery. It's helpful, we as parents, because I didn't know this early on, and I honestly just found this stuff out about the past year. It's good for your child to go, or loved one to go into a sober living facility. Let them find their own path. Get out of the way. Get out of the way and let them do the work. This is for them to do their work so that they can get better. We do our work on ourselves. And I think, what's the statistic? A year, 40%. Let them do their own work. 30 days rehab, 6 months sober living, or if not longer, IOP. Let them do these things. I wouldn't recommend on my son doesn't come home. He's not allowed to come home. He can find his own resources and does. He has his own place. He works every day. He's met a lovely lady. There's things that we just got to get out of the way. Got to get out of the way and let God work.
Michelle, why?
And know that there's family support.
Why is not coming back home an option?
Because I don't want to deal with it anymore. Honestly, I can't handle it. I can't do it. He's got to do that. He knows that that's our boundary. He's not there when we're not there. He doesn't come home. To have a better success for himself, I feel like for him to succeed better, he can find his way. Nobody helped us when we were growing up. Not me. I learned on my own. So, and you know what? It's good for them to be uncomfortable. We can't make them comfortable all the time. When we're comfortable, we're kind of used to our routine, and then we just go back to doing whatever we want to do. When you're uncomfortable, that's when change starts.
100%. When we get comfortable, we get complacent, right? And the program AA has always taught me, to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because when you're uncomfortable, you're willing to do things different, right? You're willing to adjust. So, well, I do appreciate so much you taking the time to share with us today and sharing your experience and sharing how much you've grown in this process. Who would have thought that your loved one that is struggling with addiction would have the impact that he has had, his journey and his process would have had on you, for you to say, you know what, there's some things about me that I need to work on and I need to improve upon. Now, as a result of having a loved one that is struggling with and battling this illness, many families feel like they're locked up and in a cage and they're shackled and they're, I sort of refer to it as being in bondage. Do you feel after 6 months of the work that you're doing for yourself, do you still feel like you're in that cage, or how do you feel today? How would you describe that?
I'm free. I don't feel like I'm in a cage. I'm empowered, strong woman of faith. I'm empowered. I feel free. I'm not in the bondage of addiction with right along with him anymore. I have my life, he has his life. It's just wonderful. I can't explain it. It's like I'm saved. I can't explain it. It's wonderful. Because I know good things are going to happen. You have to believe and you have to have faith. And my gosh, we got to let go. You got to let go and let God. And when you do that, things happen. They really do. Things happen.
Did you ever thought you'd be here in this moment, in this day, doing this show and saying what you're saying? Did you ever think you'd ever be here?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I feel so daggone good. I do. I never thought that.
Well, I am very proud of you. And again, very happy that you took this step to realize that this being a family illness, although you are not addicted to drugs and alcohol, there were clearly some mindsets, belief systems, attitudes, and behaviors of your own that required some adjustment, right? That needed some help, and that you too needed your own emotional and mental support, as so does your son and your loved one. So we, again, thank you so much for being here. For our listeners today, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that Michelle was able to, through her story, provide you with some clarity and some understanding that with what you're going through, you are not alone, right? A lot of us are going through this where we are either in active addiction ourselves or we have a loved one that is in active addiction and has been in and out of the program and has struggled to maintain sobriety. But keep in mind, there's also many, countless success stories of where clients have gone to treatment and done what they needed to do. My gosh, many of those men and women who have been successful in overcoming addiction, they are the leaders and the owners of the Robert Alexander Center, right? What an amazing team there. So, there is so much successes. I think we spend so much time focusing on, the negative aspects of this illness. But, Michelle, I love when you said that despite the illness, you learned from this experience. There were things that you learned from this, with regards to, letting go of control, letting go, letting God, realizing that even though that we're powerless, all is not lost, right? That we can seek in a power greater than ourselves to help restore us to sanity. A lot of what we talked about here today is really in line with the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I just appreciate this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would love to have more meaningful conversation surrounding what Michelle and I just talked about here today, please feel free to email me at empoweredvoices45@gmail.com. Again, that's empoweredvoices45@gmail.com. And if you'd like to talk to Michelle, reach out to me and I'll be happy to share her contact information with you at that time, because she is truly a woman of faith. She's an amazing mom and a great support to other families out there that are impacted by the disease of addiction. Thank you guys and have a blessed day. Hi, everyone. As a reminder to all of our listeners, after today's show with Michelle Heintz, and we talked so much candidly about her loved one's journey through addiction and how she was able to find a way to overcome and manage her emotions and find her own healing and recovery. I wanted to extend the opportunity for any of our families out there that have listened to our show. If you have any additional questions that you would like answered on the show, that maybe you would like to have Michelle come back and we can discuss more about, what she's done and how she's grown and how she's overcome, please feel free to reach out to me again via my email at empoweredvoices45@gmail.com. Send us your questions so that Michelle and I would be happy to have another show where we can answer those questions for you and have another open and candid conversation.